Hey now, ladies and gentlemen. Hey now. Hour number 2 of the Line Talk 99.5 and Talk995.com and DrewMcLeanWho.com and the Talk 99.5 app. Make sure you get on it and make sure you got the app and all that kind of stuff. I know I sound weird today, but again, I think I might be sick or something. I don't know. I'll probably know tomorrow. That'd be great, getting sick right before my family comes in town.
Oh, that's going to stink.
Wouldn't that be fantastic? Do you have ibuprofen on standby?
I may have it in my bag.
Check on that. Not right now, but just
Okay.
maybe during the next break.
I will.
I've got like tons of it at the house, and I could not find the first freaking bottle. I mean, I got big Costco bottles. It's got like 800 ibuprofen in it, and I couldn't find them. But it's whatever. It's whatever. I'll be all right. Let me. We were talking about sports. Let me get some just a couple sports things out of the way. By the way, J.D. Vance is speaking in Maine right now, Brewer, Maine, a home of Graham Plattner, isn't it? And he's just doing a standard campaign stop as they get ramped up for the midterms. We're not worried about going to that because we're going to go to Scott Bessent at 12. But Ennis Cantor Freedom. Do you know who that is? He is the basketball player from Turkey.
One of the ones that was going to be in the draft next year. Wanted to be,
the WNBA draft. Well, he's good buddies with Sophie Cunningham, and he showed up to the Indiana Fever Chicago Sky game, and he was there at the baseline, like right behind one of the goals, and one of the Chicago players, whose name was, what's her name? Her name is, it was something. Oh, Natasha Cloud is this Sky player's name. Well, she goes up and scores a basket and then proceeds to get up in the face of Ennis Cantor Freedom and run in her mouth because he had been, cheering for Sophie and all this kind of stuff. But in particular, because he was wearing a shirt that said woman, noun, adult, human, female. It was just the technical definition of a female. Now, recall that the WNBA officials had to have a meeting on defining what a woman was once these ex-NBA stars started declaring for the WNBA draft, saying they are eligible to be drafted because they are now identifying as females. And so that's been the thing. They've been, hyping up the whole transgenders and yada, yada, yada. Anyway, so he's wearing that shirt, and that obviously pissed her off. Oh, in the WNBA officials, by the way, they had that meeting, and it lasted like 3 hours. And when they came out, they said that they hadn't come to a conclusion about what a woman was.
That's
pretty wild.
Stupid.
So she gets up in his face, and he stands up and puts his arms out like, "Hey, what do you want?" And they end up kicking him out of the game, even though he was being taunted by the player on the court. He said that when he got to the game, he said, "Careful what you wish for, WNBA. Freedom of speech never looked this good." And he was flashing his shirt that had the definition of a woman on there. The confrontation, I'll just read it to you. The confrontation in the third quarter after Cloud scored inside for Chicago. As the Fever called the timeout, Cloud turned towards Freedom, began pointing at him, and shouted in his direction. Freedom stood up, held out his arms, and took one step forward, or one step towards the court as security personnel, game officials, and several Chicago players rushed between them. An official then ordered Freedom removed from his courtside seat. He briefly protested before security escorted him towards the lobby. He held out his shirt for the crowd to see as hostile Chicago fans booed, jeered, and flashed obscene gestures. That's the thing about this group of people and these WNBA fans. They're just downright nasty. Like they will say the nastiest stuff if they think you're somehow, standing up for women, which is amazing. Freedom later spoke to police officers before leaving the arena. He immediately responded on X by saying, quote, "I just got kicked out of a WNBA game for supporting women. Let that sink in, America." That's pretty wild. He followed up with another jab saying, "It's always women hating on other women." Which, he ain't lying. Cloud refused to speak with the reporters after the game, but reportedly met with league and team security. Chicago Sky coach Tyler Marsh defended Cloud, claiming she was protecting her teammates and, quote, people who need to be protected. So she was protecting trans people by getting in a fight with somebody in the crowd. Amazing. Freedom said, Sophie Cunningham shot a 3, and I put my hands up to celebrate. Literally a couple of possessions later, Natasha Cloud came back and started screaming and yelling and said, quote, "She's not going to sleep with you." So that's what the Chicago player said to Freedom. And I was like, this is what he says, and I was like, "I'm not trying to sleep with her. I'm just here to protect women and support her." And then, obviously, after that, she started yapping, and she started to walk towards me. And I just got up, and then I was like, "I'm just here to protect women, and that's all." She started to yell. She started to use some very heavy language. She started to actually cuss, and I was very shocked that there were a lot of kids and that there were a lot of teenagers at the game. I just cannot believe that she was just cussing and using those F-bombs in front of all these kids. I'm sure she's loved in Chicago and many kids are idolizing her and stuff, but that's not how a WNBA athlete should react. I was cheering for my friend Sophie because when she shot that 3, I put my hands in the air. A couple possessions later, she came back and said she's not going to sleep with you, and I was shocked. I was like, listen, I'm not trying to sleep with her. I think she's awesome. She's a good friend, but I think it has a lot to do with my shirt. The Fever went on to demolish the Chicago Sky 113-90, by the way.
Yeah.
So put them in their place. WNBA, man. What a mess. What a mess that is. Richard the Cop's on the line. Richard, what's up, buddy?
Talking about that contest where they stood with their hands on the car.
Yeah.
John Crump Toyota during Memorial Day weekend, 1988. Local radio station, I think it was 95.3, drew 95 names of people who had registered, and I was one of them.
Oh.
They put us out there in that heat during Memorial Day weekend. 3 or 4 cars under these tents, and us standing with our hands on them. You could not put your body on the car in any other way, shape, or form. Like the man said earlier, we would get a little short break every hour and a 20-minute break about every 5 or 6 hours. And the porta potties were like 100 yards on the back of the dealership. Boy, you had to hustle when you got tired. We were allowed food during our short breaks, and my mom supported me in that. I was 18, 19 years old. I stood there 72 hours.
Dang.
The won it stood there 96 hours, and then the next year he turned around and won it again.
Jeez, dude, that's crazy.
It was the most, and they would come around. They had paramedics on site that would come around and talk to you and break caps. ex-law enforcement buddy of mine, was a paramedic then. He would come around, they'd check your blood pressure, they'd listen to your heart, and you standing there. And one of the guys said, I can't get this thing to fit. He goes, well, his arms are so big, you'd rather put it around his forearm because he goes, his arm's too fat. He goes, you better roll that sleeve up and look. But yeah, it was a one-time thing. I was into all kind of stupid endurance stuff back then like that, but it was a long 72 hours.
That's wild. That is very. So when with the breaks, like when it came to eating, how long would they give you to eat?
You had 5 minutes to do whatever you wanted to do, and our coolers were not allowed next to us. They were outside the tents, and I had stuff in there. And my mom had come by on her way home from work and resupply me, and which I'm really shocked because she really didn't like me doing stuff like that.
So you had 5 minutes to eat and go to the bathroom?
Down, get something to drink, and if you wanted to go to the bathroom, you needed to hold it till the 20-minute break every 4 hours, and that was about 100-yard trip to the porta potties. I mean, the tireder you got, the hotter it was, the longer it seemed.
So how often would these breaks be throughout like a 24 hours?
You get a 5-minute break every hour, and then you get a 20-minute break every 6 hours.
Okay, I got you.
And it was a lot. I mean, they did live broadcasts from there. They promoted the hell out of this. John Trump Toyota, no telling what kind of money they made off of it because they were having a big Memorial Day sale that weekend. So you got all these rubes walking around looking at the crazy people under the tent.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting experience. It's something that I haven't thought about in years till y'all mentioned that, and I thought, I know what kind of hell on earth that was because I lived it.
Yeah, that's wild, dude. That is crazy. Well, I think
and the only reason I quit, Andrew, is my calves got swelling so big, and I was training for a national powerlifting tournament that come in January, and I didn't want to have any risk of blood clots or any major problems. I thought, man, this ain't worth this. I'm going home.
Yeah, nah, I don't blame you. I wouldn't.
Yeah, have a good day, boys. Going to pick up a body.
See you, buddy. It's that's got to be really tough. I mean, even I'm surprised that they would do 5 minutes every hour, but that would probably help your endurance, But you're talking about all day and all night. You're not allowed to sleep because your hand would fall off.
I wonder if the car dealership had to have insurance or something on the people, or
they probably just made them
sign a release. Yeah,
they sign all their rights away. Like if you die, you die. It's not our fault. That's great. We should revive that. But I don't know. Society's so weird now. We'd probably not even get anybody that wants to do it. People would be like, "Nah, I'm not doing that." And with the COVID jabs and everything else, we would have a scandal on our hands because we'd have probably 3 or 4 dead bodies before the contest is over. People just dropped out, didn't drop out of the contest. They dropped out of life. Yeah, we don't need that. There's a reason nobody does it anymore. All right, 545-9950. How about the Freedom 250 Grand Prix yesterday? That was pretty amazing. Let me touch on that when we get back. All right. So just a couple quick things, and I'll go back to the phones on the Grand Prix. Did you get to see any of it, Bird? You were probably busy, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
You were stuck at Costco. Was that
Yeah.
yesterday?
Yeah, I went out and watched my car and
You
stuff.
were
and
probably
I got-
so stressed out
Oh
in
my
that parking
gosh!
lot.
Don't even get me. Oh.
Oh, I can already hear you cussing.
Oh my gosh! I was getting ready to say I was cussing and fussing. I felt bad about it.
So anyway, with the Freedom 250 thing, so really cool start to the show when they sang the national anthem. They had, and they've been doing this at these events. They had a bald eagle flying over the racetrack, which was super cool. The national anthem was good. And then the flyover, Damien's wife, Taylor,
That's so awesome.
was right there front and center and one of those choppers, and it was dope. We found the footage of it, and even he sent me a video that was kind of from her point of view. That well, I sent it to you. Why are you acting surprised?
Yeah, I loved it.
Okay. Well, anyway, it was super cool to see that.
I'll check it out
And I know
for sure.
Damien was super proud of that.
You know
it. Shout out to Taylor and what she does. He says she didn't think it was that big of a deal, but we're all like, yeah, we know that chick. That's awesome.
I know, man.
So that was cool. Kyle Kirkwood ended up winning the race. He even gave Donald Trump a shout out after winning the Freedom 250 Grand Prix. So I think it was all a success. I think it turned out great. And another awesome 250 event. Now, I don't know that anything's going to match the UFC fight, but still, all cool events. Let's hit the phones real quick. Thomas in Georgia. Thomas, what's up?
Oh, not much. Hey, now, yeah, we are talking about the stupid radio contest. I was calling you about one, and I looked it up while I was on hold. But in 2007, a California radio station had a "Hold Your Wii" for a Wii game system, and it was like looking at it here. They had to drink so much water, basically a quart of water every so many minutes or whatever, and this nurse called in the show and said, "Hey, this is not a good idea because this can cause water toxicity and things like that." And sure enough, 28-year-old woman died from that.
That's right. I remember that now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking here. So she had 3 kids. She was doing it to win the game for her kids.
Yeah.
And the DJs addressed the complainant that called in and said, "Oh, it's okay. We're aware of that. And besides, she signed a release, so we're not responsible." Well, yeah, they were.
That's awful. That is awful.
Yeah, it's something when you start doing contests like that, think of the long-term ramifications because I'm sure those guys' careers gone.
Oh, yeah. They're long gone, I'm sure. Never to be heard of from again. Well, yeah,
So,
Thomas,
anyway,
I appreciate it, buddy.
Y'all have a good one.
We'll see you, buddy. Yeah, I remember that. That was a big story back then, or I guess it was then kind of a legend that people talked about. The thing about radio people, and it's not really like that anymore because a lot more precautions have been taken, and also corporate radio or big corporate companies have bought up all the radio stations. So it's not like it used to be where you had all these individually owned radio stations all over the country.
Mom pops.
But back then, DJs would be pretty overzealous and would throw caution to the wind for the sake of content. And I know I get accused of that sometimes, but I'm not going to put anybody in a position where they die,
Really?
Well, I mean,
I guess not on the radio, maybe the podcast.
Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, so the Freedom 250 was an outstanding event. With Friday being my birthday, and I just kicked off my whole weekend on everything. I couldn't wait to find something about what was going on there, and especially even the ARCA event, which was great. having to run those old ARCA cars there. And I'm not a big Jeff Gordon fan, but he knows how to get to the front. And of course, my driver was Kurt Busch.
Yeah.
And so I've been a Kurt Busch fan for years. I actually got to see him win his championship in 2004 at the track.
Yeah.
So just all of this stuff going on, the flyovers, you could tell everybody was very patriotic there. When Trump come out there, everybody was cheering. I didn't hear anybody jeering. No boos that I could hear.
Right.
But it was awesome. It was a fantastic event, and I know all the drivers were just like, man, this is just a great track and great views. And hopefully they can run it again.
Yeah, dude. It
not happen.
It was great. I'm gonna hit this break, Tony, but all good stuff, man. I agree with you 100%. Fantastic event. 205 545 9950 545 9950. I was watching an interview as they were doing the pre-race stuff for this Grand Prix, and it was Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and they were talking politics. They weren't talking about the race, but he was talking about the midterms.
Mm-hmm.
And he says it's a race between common sense and crazy in the midterms. And you better not bet against House Republicans. And I know some people have got themselves freaked out thinking that Democrats are going to win the midterms and everything else. I'll say this, no matter which way it goes, it's likely going to be a small margin on the House and the Senate side. Just because that's the way it goes. I mean, half the country is liberals and whacked out of their minds, and then half the country is conservative. And the difference is in these midterms is really in big part comes down to money. And this is what Mike Johnson was referring to. The RNC has $130 million in cash on hand, and they have $0 in debt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Democrats only have $16 million in cash on hand, and they've got $18 million in debt. They've got more debt than they do cash, and only have a small fraction of the amount that Republicans had. Now, this is just the RNC. Mike Johnson has broken every record held by a Speaker of the House when it comes to fundraising. And Mike Johnson himself said in the interview, he's like, I'm not even that good of a fundraiser. He said, but I think what's happening is that Americans are seeing what's going on across the country, and they're incredibly concerned that some of these crazies could make their way into office. And so that's getting them motivated to donate money and have the Republicans at such a lead. Again, the RNC, $130 million. I think Donald Trump's war chest is $200-something million. Elon Musk is pledged to spend millions and millions of dollars in this midterm, much like he did. I mean, if it's anything like he did in 2024, I mean, he spent tens of millions of dollars in the presidential race and in those races. So the Republicans have this race to the majority won, and it's theirs to blow. It is completely up to them to screw this up because they have all the advantages, from the redistricting to election security measures. Even though not enough, the ones that have taken place. They have cleaned up some voter rolls. They're identifying illegals that are voting. They are deporting illegals at a rapid pace. That wasn't the case during the last election. Trump wasn't in office yet. They are sending poll workers, or poll watchers, should I say, over 1,000 of them, to different polling hotspots, I guess, if you will, that are places of concern across the country. And I don't know, man. I just got a feeling that they're doing things, and this is really the first time I've ever been able to say this. I feel like when it comes to upcoming elections, Republicans are doing the right thing for once. Now, not across the board, because there's a lot more they could do. And with losers like John Thune and others in the Senate who refuse to pass things like the Save America Act, that's another issue. But for what the administration and the Republican Party can control, the ball's in their court. and it's up to them to drive it home and win these midterms. So the outlook is good. Okay? The outlook is good. No matter what fear mongering is going on or what you're being told and this, that, and the other, block it out. It's fine. We're good right now. But there's also a lot of time between now and then. I mean, we're almost in September, John Bird. September, October.
Couple months.
Literally a couple months. Okay, so maybe it's not that maybe it's not that far away. Literally, we're talking about what, 9 weeks, 9 to 10 weeks, and it's going to be going on.
That's scary.
And hell, maybe by then we may have some House members, Democrat congressional members that get kicked out of Congress and sent back to their own country, kind of like Ilhan Omar. They have Trump basically on True Social confirmed that ICE, and it takes some reading between the lines, but he essentially gave a hat tip to confirm that ICE enforcement proceedings are underway against Ilhan Omar over her immigration fraud, which has been covered for years now. We know about her marrying her brother and lying to get into the U.S. and her immigration status and all this kind of stuff. So Trump posted last night an article from Just the News from John Solomon, which revealed that Immigration and Customs Enforcement refused to release records concerning its investigation into Ilhan Omar. ICE claimed that disclosing the records could interfere with enforcement proceedings. So that is ICE saying, yes, we are in the midst of enforcement proceedings in relation to Ilhan Omar and her immigration status. He did not add any further commentary. He just posted it with the headline, and that was it. And that's his way, because he knows what's going on. That's his way of letting you know that they're working behind the scenes to possibly boot Ilhan Omar out of here and send her back to their own country. Because, listen, I mean, that's been happening to a lot of people across the country already. Ask Marco Rubio. They're pulling visas left and right for people that lied on their applications to get into this country, or people that violate the terms of seeking asylum here or work visas or whatever it may be, such as you can't commit a crime if you're here as a guest. So it wouldn't be nothing new. It's just a matter of this is a member of Congress. This is going to get yanked out of her seat and sent back to her ish-hole country. And it couldn't happen to a nicer lady, you know? But here's the thing. Like, people like Ilhan Omar, they hate America. And they love their home country. So what's the big deal? Like, seems like we're doing you a favor, cuz. I think we're doing you a favor. It says that ICE refused to turn over the records, citing 5 U.S. Code 552 B7A as an exemption protecting law enforcement material when disclosure could disrupt an investigation or proceeding. Quote, disclosure of any responsive records at this time could reasonably be expected to interfere with enforcement proceedings. ICE has not publicly identified the precise proceeding, announced charges, or confirmed that any removal proceedings have formally begun against Omar. However, the agency's response is the clearest official indication to date that federal scrutiny surrounding the Congresswoman remains active. And so, do we throw her a goodbye party if she's gone?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
I don't think it'd be a bad idea, though. I mean, you know, it's kind of like some of these Democrat congressional members that we follow for a long time that are just super wacky and obnoxious. You get used to them, and once they're gone, you're like, I mean, like Jasmine Crockett, she'll be gone at the end of the year
Yes.
or in January, and it's like, who's gonna call all the whiteys racist once Jasmine Crockett's gone? And who, if Ilhan Omar gets booted out, who's gonna be the terrorist sympathizer on Capitol Hill? I'm sure they can find somebody, especially if Abdul El Sayed wins his Michigan race, which, by the way, not looking good for him. The polls are not being kind to him, but take said polls with a grain of salt. There was another story which I thought was kind of cool, and it was about an angel dad who is honoring his daughter that was killed by an illegal with a new role helping ICE. He's actually been hired by the administration to work directly hand in hand with ICE. Now,
That is awesome.
I'll tell you his story. His name's Joe Abrams, and his 20-year-old daughter, Katie, was killed by an illegal immigrant, Julio Sisul Bowl from Guatemala. Julio, who is suspected of drunk driving, struck Katie at a high speed while she was stopped at a red light. Joe told Fox News, quote, the person that killed Katie, Julio Sisul Bowl, who was using an alias, who couldn't read or write English or Spanish. He was using a Kai language, barreled into them at 80 miles an hour. Katie died on the scene, and he fled the scene. And so, anyway, that's his story. Now, Joe Abraham will be taking on a new role with ICE, leading the Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement Office. The acronym for that is VOICE. So VOICE is an official office within ICE that was originally created in 2017 under the first Trump administration. It was, get this, shut down by the Biden administration in 2021, like soon as he got into office, and then reestablished or relaunched in 2025 under the second Trump administration. So imagine having an advocate group that is simply there to help families who were victims of illegal migrant violence. That they had a family member murdered by an illegal. It's just an office to simply help those family members. And you, as the president, Joe Biden, or whoever's pulling the strings, said, you know what? We don't need that. We got to axe that department. We don't want these angel families being helped. And of course they don't. They didn't want angel families getting any attention whatsoever. You were actually a nuisance because you were the proof that open borders kill people. You, as an angel family member, you were proof that Biden's open border policies are deadly. And so they had to take, no pun intended, your voice away from you. It says its purpose is to assist victims and their families who have been impacted by crimes committed by criminal aliens or illegal aliens. Homeland Security shared, quote, there is no one better to lead ICE's voice office than Angel Dad Joe. That's his handle on X if you want to follow him. Since his daughter Katie was murdered by an illegal alien drunk driver in a hit and run in Sanctuary, Illinois, he has been a staunch advocate for victims of illegal alien crime. In his new role, he will continue to help families who have lost a loved one to a preventable tragedy caused by open border policies. Joe Abraham responded to the news saying, quote, thank you, ICE, for the warm welcome. This role is deeply personal. I know what it feels like to be a victim's family member searching for answers and someone willing to listen. Victims and families of immigration-related crime carry a profound, uniquely painful burden on top of an unimaginable grief. They deserve a dedicated place to turn, to be heard, supported, and treated with dignity. Katie's story brought me to this mission, but Voice is much bigger than one family. I'm honored and humbled to serve victims and families across this country and ensure their voices are heard and their stories are never forgotten. Every victim of a crime committed by an illegal immigrant deserves to know that someone is listening. That is the promise of Voice. Good for him. Good for him and his new role, and just for somebody that, you know, went through such pain and agony to make that his life's mission to help other families that are going through the same thing. I think is awesome. Real quick, Alan from Nectar. Alan, what's up?
Hey, bro, what's happening?
Hey, man.
Hey, you got a better chance of getting sent to Somalia than she does.
You think so? I mean, I'm not going to say that they're actually going to do it. I'm just telling you what is being said or what's being alluded to, and it's going to be a tall task. Like, it's not going to, even on the political side of things, there'll be a crazy amount of political backlash from doing that. But you know, we're not dealing with your average administration either. So
the Maryland guy's still here.
Oh, what was his name?
He's guilty as everything, trafficking humans and you name it.
Is he still in a detention center?
I guess. I don't know. They probably got him booked up in some kind of castle somewhere, worshiping like he's the greatest person on earth. His buddy yesterday was on TV acting like he was going to run for president, Van Hollen.
Oh, Van Hollen. Yeah, that loser.
I'd like to announce my candidacy also.
Yeah.
Damn.
I'll vote for you, Alan.
All right, my brother. Y'all be cool.
All right, buddy. See ya. I'm looking. It was Abrego Garcia. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is currently in Maryland, living with his family, including his U.S. citizen and wife and child, in the Beltsville area outside immigration. In the Beltsville area outside immigration detention, he was released from ICE custody on December 11th, 2025, after a U.S. District Judge in Maryland ordered it, finding no legal basis for continued detention following his return to El Salvador. A further ruling on February 17th barred ICE from redetaining him. So basically what's going, and there's no real, it says as of the most recent available reporting, mid to late August, there are no indications he has been redetained or removed. Sources describe him as free and living with his family in Maryland while the legal matters proceed. So this is still going through the courts, and you've got whacked out liberal judges that are allowing these criminals to be out on the streets. Quick break. More coming up. Yeah. A little Russian metal. That's all that is. I got to imagine on the battlefield between Ukraine and Russia, this is probably what they're listening to.
Yeah, I'll bet.
It'd get me hyped up. That's, by the way, that's deteriorating quickly. You know, Donald Trump kind of washed his hands of it and said, wait, hold on. Here comes the good part. Okay, I just had to hit the brake down there.
His throat must hurt.
It's deteriorating quickly over in Ukraine as they had gone and bombed several, I guess you would say economic hotspots in Russia and around Moscow. And so Russia said, you know what? And you just made the worst mistake of your life. And they started hitting some of the most vulnerable economic spots in Ukraine, in Kiev. And it's just, it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's that one's one of the more complicated situations. And I think Donald Trump is extremely frustrated by it because as he saw it happen, he knew that it didn't have to happen. Cooler heads could have prevailed, but the Biden administration and NATO egged it on. They're ultimately responsible for this in the first place. And by the time he gets into office, they've dug in so deep that it's impossible to get them to the table. And really, it all comes down to the behaviors of NATO and the Biden administration and what they had done for all those years in the lead up to Trump taking office. But he regrets it because I think he truly believed that he'd be able to stop that war in one day, which is what he said on the campaign trail. And once you get into office and see the reality of things, then you don't really, you don't know till you get there. All right, I got a lot of other headlines to get to. I'm going to do that, but we're also waiting on Scott Bessent and want to see what he has to say about Iran. Also, in the Lindsey Clancy trial, final testimony in that trial could come today as it starts to wrap.